Sean Myers of the Westmoreland Sports Network, joined by Dan Boring, the former Southmoreland wrestling coach. It's a decade with the program, 6 years as the head coach. You decided to ultimately step down. And Dan, congrats on a great run. I'm sure this was a difficult decision for you. I saw the post you had on Facebook saying it was emotional. You can't really sum it up in just a few words. But in trying to do that once again, what comes to mind when you think of your time at Southmoreland guiding the wrestling program?
A lot of things, but really, the biggest thing would be the relationship with the kids that I built. For 10 years, you deal with a lot of kids, and getting to know them on a personal basis. For 10 years, I had a lot of kids who I started with in junior high who followed me to the high school, had them through all their years, and I still work with them, during their time in college, and they still come around and say hello, coach, and stuff. So really, the time with the kids and building those relationships and bonds with them would be the biggest thing I take away from my time.
So again, it was, I'm sure, not an easy decision, but one that sort of had to be made because of some success that you've had in your other career as now a principal. Talk about that and how that growth has kind of, taken the forefront of your attention recently.
Yeah, kind of a weird career move for me, from a health and PE teacher to an AD, into being an associate principal at Dairy this past year. Kind of moved a little quicker than would normally expect. I got moved into like a head principal role here towards the end of this first school year as a principal, which is good. For my family, career has to be first in what I can do in terms of, raising I got 5 kids at home, between my 3 stepdaughters and my 2 boys. That was the biggest thing in looking at the decision was in talking with the superintendent at Dairy and looking at the differences. I'm 45 minutes away as an associate principal. I could leave a little bit here and there, some flexibility in the time, get back to Southmoreland in time for practices, for the bus to leave for tournaments and matches. Now in that head role, it was a little more difficult to say, okay, I can leave right at 3:30 and get to practice, by 4 o'clock and be ready to rock and roll, when there's a lot more to it with now running a building.
And for those unaware, you are a Dairy area graduate, 2008. So it is a homecoming for you to be back there in that district. How special of an opportunity is that, even though you did ultimately have to give up one of your true passions in wrestling?
Yeah, I'm grateful and blessed to have the opportunity to come out, back home and be able to be a part of the Dairy tradition and continue to, I went to Grandview. So, going to that school, now being a principal in that school, it's kind of a nice turnaround, a nice turn of events to be back in my home district. Can't say enough about the first year there and the other admin team, the teachers, even the kids and community. It's been a good first year.
Well, we mentioned the 10 years guiding Southmoreland in some capacity with the wrestling program, 6 years as the head coach most recently, but that was not the extent of your coaching background with the Scotties. You mentioned athletic director, and it felt like you coached just about every sport that they had to offer at some point in time. What is this upcoming year going to be like without you coaching anything?
I wouldn't say I won't be involved in some aspect in coaching, but taking a break from the high school level, because it's a lot. I don't think people realize the amount of work that goes into being a head coach in any high school level sport. As an AD, I know, working with all my coaches when I was at Southmoreland and just me being the head coach of the wrestling team, it's not just in-season practices or in-season games, matches, tournaments. You're putting in hours over the summer, the fall, the spring to build things up. So having that break from, having to be 3 days a week in the off season or, doing, meetings in the school and getting kids to come out for practices. And it'll be a nice little break for my family too, where I think I drive my wife a little crazy with how much I do. So having that little bit of a break from being a head coach at a high school, varsity level will be nice for my family.
I know you said you loved all the different young men that you met in your time with the wrestling program there, and just making so many connections, many of which I'm sure you've still sustained to this day. Is there a particular season, a particular moment throughout your coaching career that really stands out?
There's a couple of big ones that I would like. It would be the match against Mount Pleasant. I want to say my second season would be 2019, 2020. We were at Mount Pleasant and we were down 31-0. We stormed back the last 7 weight classes and ended up beating them 41 or 42-31. But one of the bigger moments was Brandon Peterson. Great kid. He was basketball and wrestling at the same time, but was with us for all of our matches and practice. Went out and pinned Dan Fasano, started beating his chest. Jim went crazy.
We're under a minute 30 to go, second period. Pisano looking for a near cradle. Peterson rolls all the way through, and now he's got Pisano in trouble.
Tight.
He's got it locked up, looking for 6 points. This will be huge. Wow, 31-24. The Scotties climbing back in.
That was a real turning point for that match, but that's probably the biggest match that you're down 31-0. The other bench is thinking they have that match in the bag, and we just kind of stormed back and didn't let it bother us. And so that match always keep in mind, especially with the passing of Brandon a couple of years ago. Then the state qualifiers that I've had, just those moments for those kids who put in the work all year long and to see their work and passion come to fruition at the end of the season to qualify for Hershey. And those moments between like Brett Huffman, Anthony Govern, Andrew Johnson. I was a part of Jake Beisel being the first state champ for Southmoreland as well. Like those moments, you really hold on to those as well.
Even though you've already had a lengthy coaching career with wrestling in your life, you're still very young, obviously, in your early 30s. So do you think about potentially a point that you might get back into coaching, whether it be wrestling or another sport down the road? And how do you kind of try to balance that with maybe a little bit new of a focus now, but not wanting to completely, I would say, put that in the rear view?
Yeah. I'm not ready to say I'm done coaching forever. And, I have 2 boys who are 2 and 1 years old. So at some point I would hope they would get into wrestling, but not going to.
You haven't started training them yet?
Not yet. My wife would be a little upset with me, but hopefully down the road they'll want to get involved. And I could see myself jumping into a youth program, whether it be out in Southmoreland where we're still currently residing, Derry, wherever. So no, I'm not going to say I'm not going to ever coach again. And it could be sooner than later. Or it could be a couple years down the road. So.
Now, I don't know if the schedules are out yet or not. Would Derry and Southmoreland be matching up on the mat at all this upcoming year? And if so, how do you handle that?
Yeah, they're not out yet. And I think they're going to end up in the same section this year with sections realigning. I could see Southmoreland and Derry being in the same section. And, it'd be difficult for me with having the relationship with a lot of the kids that would still be on the high school team. It'd be a mixed bag for how I would, root for that. I'd have to say currently, cheer for a lot of the kids on Southmoreland, but if, I'm helping at all with anything else, it'd be tough.
Lastly, I'm sure you probably already reached out to a lot of people that you've guided or worked with and vice versa. I'm sure a lot of people probably reached out to you after news came out that you were stepping down. But in general, in a blanket way, what would the message be for what you have to say to the Southmoreland students, the Southmoreland wrestlers, and the entire community for your time there?
I've just been blessed to be a part of the community and the district in general. I mean, I spent 10 years of my life as a Scotty out at Southmoreland between teaching, AD, and coaching. You don't take those things for granted, especially 10 years. A lot of relationships, a lot of people that I've met and come by. And, like I said, I still live in this community. So I have stepdaughters my oldest is the catcher for the high school softball team. And she'll be a senior, on that team next year too. So still be involved with some things here, but in terms of, the wrestling program, I would just tell the parents and the kids to keep putting the work in. I think the program is in a good spot for the next couple of years. Whoever takes it over after this, I would hope would continue to keep pushing and building from the bottom up and try to, keep the program moving in the right direction.
Well, Dan, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate your time, and maybe I'll see you down the road again some point soon.
Sounds good, Sean. Thank you very much.